The great failed romances of the 20th century. Are they gonna make it? Let's find out. The great failed romances of the 20th century. They say love's forever, but I've got my doubts.
Welcome to the Great Failed Romances of the 20th Century. I'm singer, songwriter, and historian Teddy Gray.
And I drink pond water, Sam Kaufman. So Teddy, which riveting tale will we be discussing today?
Today we'll be taking a page from Children's Lit as we discuss the backstory behind the Frog and Toad book series.
Indeed, Frog and Toad are very lit. One of them was my plug in high school.
And you know, Sam, since most people don't know the backstory behind Frog and Toad, or why we're qualifying them as a couple, I'd say that this counts as another example of...
Okay, I'm gonna get it this time, give me a chance. Unwritten gay romantic histories! Did I hit the note?
This is why you're not on the album.
Frog and Toad is a beloved children's book series written and illustrated by author Arnold Lepore. It has been acclaimed by critics and audiences alike for its dry wit, beautiful watercolor illustrations, and the touching relationship between its two titular characters. Frog put the cookies in a box. There, he said, now we will not eat any more cookies. But we can open the box, said Toad. That is true, said Frog.
Over the 1970s, Lepore wrote 4 Frog and Toad collections, each containing numerous short stories about the two amphibian pals. Its success led to a claymation adaptation and later on a Broadway musical. The Frog and Toad books continue to be widely read to this day for their charming stories and also for making ice cream look better than it ever has in any piece of media ever made. Roll the clip. That's what I'm talking about.
There's no clip. He said roll the clip and it's a picture.
Dude, what's with your voice?
Sorry, I had a frog in my throat.
Oh, speaking of.
While the books had a childlike whimsy to them, there was something more personal and profound to them between the lines, and that's due to the personal life of author Arnold Lepore. Lepore had a difficult childhood due to bullying, and found solace in books and drawings, fueling his desire to become an author and illustrator himself.
In 1955, years before creating Frog and Toad, Arnold married fellow children's author Anita Kempler after dating her in art school. The two worked and collaborated together and soon had 2 children, their daughter Adrienne and son Adam.
In the years that followed, while Lepore was working overtime as both an author and a father, it became clear to him internally that he wasn't entirely being true to himself, and eventually he realized that he was a gay man. It is unknown if Lepore only discovered this after marrying Kempler, or if he had known it all along but was trying to hide it, but as time went on, it became harder for him to ignore the truth.
It was during this period of his life that Lepore developed the characters that he would become most known for, Frog and Toad, a book series that was ultimately a celebration of same-sex love, regardless of the species.
While it's easy to see Frog and Toad as merely just a celebration of friendship, and you could certainly read it that way, its focus on male friendship and love was uncommon for the time period, particularly in children's books. Frog and Toad spend nearly all their time together, care for one another, and at the end of the day, are always by each other's side. They needed each other, just as Lepore likely needed them.
And to be clear, we're not saying that Frog and Toad were getting it on between the sheets or anything like that. Before you homophobes start writing letters to the publishers of the books, claiming that Frog and Toad is pushing some gay agenda or corrupting your children or whatever. Who do you think they are? Bert and Ernie? Now those guys are freaks.
And if you think we're reaching by claiming that writing Frog and Toad was Lepore's way of admitting to himself that he was gay, you might be interested to know that someone close to Lepore feels the same way, his own daughter.
Suck on that, haters.
Frog and Toad are of the same sex, and they love each other, Adrienne Lepore later said during an interview. It was quite ahead of its time in that respect. I think Frog and Toad really was the beginning of him coming out.
While Lepore never explicitly stated a connection between Frog and Toad and his own sexuality, he did later state in an interview with a children's book journal that, if an adult has an unhappy love affair, he writes about it. He exorcises it out of himself, perhaps, by writing a novel about it. Well, if I have an unhappy love affair, I have to somehow use all that pain and suffering, but turn it into a work for children.
In 1974, 4 years after the first Frog and Toad book had been published, Lepore realized that he could live a lie no longer, and came out to his family as a gay man. Not long after, he and his wife separated, and Lepore relocated to Greenwich Village, where he continued to work on the Frog and Toad books, and was finally able to freely be who he was.
Tragically, the story has a sad ending. Only a few years after coming out, Lebel contracted AIDS in the 80s, which rapidly deteriorated his health, leading to his eventual death in 1987. Talking about her father's death, his daughter said, "He was only 54. Think of all the stories we missed."
While Lebel tragically passed away, it's likely that his most famous work, Frog and Toad, will live on forever, being adored by both children and adults for its beautiful illustrations, witty stories, and touching meditations on friendship.
So yeah, the sweetest relationship we'll ever discuss on the show is the one between two fictional amphibians.
I mean, are you really surprised? Humans are terrible, terrible creatures.
Frogs and toads, though? Pretty cool. So, Teddy, before one of us croaks, tell us about the song.
This song is called Frog and Toad Are Friends.
Now, I'm being told that that title is not legally defensible. Is this true?
Shut up, Toad.
Frog and Toad Are Friends showcases what may have been the internal monologue of Arnold Lebel as he works on his books, coming to terms with his identity as a gay man, but only being able to express it in his work. He wonders to himself how coming out would change his life, and reckons with the fact that it could severely impact his career in a negative way and cause considerable controversy, potentially resulting in having his one true outlet of expression taken away. If Unwritten Gay Romantic History was a song about openly celebrating the gay relationships of the past, Frog and Toad Are Friends is the more realistic flip side. It reminds you that while every gay figure would have loved to be open and free with their identities, it was an impossibility for many because of their profession, the times they lived in, or both, and was something that could only be revealed in confidence, or in this case, between the pages of a children's book.
Tune in next week to learn about how Clifford the dog was actually an allegory for communism. He was red for a reason.
Enjoy Frog and Toad Are Friends.
Now you mean the book, right? 'Cause this song sucks!
Walking to the riverbank, and I'll hide behind the easel and the pencils and the paint, pouring every drop of lifeblood I have left onto the page. As I wrestle with my feelings and the inklings and the doubts, it's revealed to me what these stories have always been about. Now they ask me where it comes from, and I claim there's not a link, just a watercolor soul in a world of pen and ink. How long must I pretend that Frog and Toad are friends? But just think of the resistance if the people knew the truth. I would be accused of suddenly corrupting all the youth. It could ruin my career, my reputation, and my life. Oh, what would I tell my children, and what would I tell my wife? Would I have to spend remaining years trying to defend the relationship between a duo of amphibians? Would they rip my work from schools and ban me from the libraries? I thought I wrote for kids, I guess it's always been for me. How long must I pretend that Frog and Toad are friends until the story ends? Until the story ends. As long as Frog and Toad are friends, as long as Frog and Toad are friends, as long as Frog and Toad are friends, as long as Frog and Toad are friends.
The great failed romances of the 20th century. Are they gonna make it? Let's find out. The great failed romances of the 20th century. They say love's forever, but I've got my doubts.